everyone, welcome back. My name is Zaira from Gumpia Designs and Creations, and today we will be learning what are stacked increases and how they take an important role in creating shapes when working in rounds. We will also be creating two shapes, a square and a triangle. This is so you can see the explanation applied in a visual and practical manner. If there are terms that I mentioned but you don't know what they are, make sure to check out my basic terms video. Let's get started. First of all, what are stacked increases? The basic explanation is placing an increase on top of an increase that was made in the previous round. The opposite of this would be to stagger the increases, which is what we did on my previous video about working in rounds and making a circle and a sphere. Let me show you what I mean. Look at this picture. First, I want to mention that this stitch that I used here is called the knit stitch or waistcoat stitch. This is not a regular single crochet, but I find it nice for visual explanations. As you can see here, the white stitches are single crochet stitches, while the orange stitches are the increases that I made. The pattern here is the same as the one on my working in rounds video. I started my magic ring with 6 stitches, which are all white. Then I made 6 increases on my second round, which is all orange. And on my third, I made single crochet, increase, 6 times, and so on. But I want you to pay attention to round 4, which is the one right here. Notice that the white stitches are on top of orange stitches, while my orange stitches are on top of white stitches. This is staggering increases. It's paying attention not to place increases on top of increases. This is necessary when wanting to create shapes that don't have points or corners, like circles and ovals. On the other hand, stacking increases is necessary when wanting to create shapes like squares and triangles because they have corners, and stacking increases will help create those corners or points. Now that we understand what stacked increases are, let's talk about placement. When wanting to create shapes like squares and triangles, in addition to stacking increases, we need to know how and where to place said increases. Enter math. I hope you paid attention to geometry class. But if not, don't worry, for I am here. Anyways, shapes. We know a circle doesn't have corners, right? So we shouldn't stack increases. A square, however, how many corners does it have? That's right, 4. I hope you got that right. And a triangle? 3. Yes. What does this mean in crochet? When stacking increases, the edge of your work will gradually start to show some points like this. The amount of points depends on 2 things: the amount of increases you're doing per round and/or where you place and stack the increases. In this case, I did 6 increases per round, stacking them and separating them evenly, resulting in my work to have 6 points evenly spaced. And going back to geometry, a shape with 6 points is a hexagon. If I would have made 5 increases per round in this same manner, stacking them and spacing them evenly, it would have 5 points instead, making it a pentagon. But keep in mind that this doesn't happen just because I made 6 increases per round. It's also because I placed them on top of each other on those specific spots. The placement is important because normally a regular increase makes the edge push outwards wherever the increase is placed. The reason is that it needs space that it doesn't have. This is because you're turning one stitch into 2 or more stitches. If you add to that a stacked increase, the push will be even more prominent. Knowing this, how many increases per round do you need to make a square? 4. And a triangle? 3. But remember, it's not just about the amount of increases, it's also the placement. Let's go back to math. Yay! Let's see a square. We know we need 4 corners. This already tells us that we need to start our magic ring with an amount of stitches that is dividable by 4. Why? Because I need to place increases in 4 points of each round. So what are my options? I can either start with 4, 8, 12, and so on. Whatever is divisible by 4. Look at this example. If I were to start with 6 stitches for my square, which is not divisible by 4, and I wanted to place my 4 increases like this, these 2 stitches are left in between, and it will make my square look uneven because there would be a space between 2 of my increases, but not on the other 2. I hope I'm making sense. Look at this other example. If I were to start with 4 or 8 stitches, I wouldn't have the previous problem. With 4, I would just make an increase on each of them, while with 8, I would place my increases, leaving 1 stitch in between them, making it an even square. What about a triangle? Can you figure out how you would start it? You can pause if you want to figure it out by yourself. If not, continue. Okay, so the first thing we need to figure out is the number of stitches I'm going to start with. I know a triangle has 3 corners, so it needs to be an amount that is divisible by 3. This leaves me with the options of 3, 6, 9, nice, and so on. I will choose 6. With 6, I know that the placement of my increases will be single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase. Again, this will make my increases evenly spaced. Now that we hopefully understand, let's talk about the amount of stitches that we will place in the increases. As we know, the definition of an increase is placing 2 or more stitches into 1 stitch. While for squares and triangles we can just make regular increases, 2 stitches into 1, there's a better way to make the corners more prominent. To do this, we make an increase of 3 stitches into 1 instead of 2 stitches. Why? In 2 stitches, there is no center. In 3, however, there is a center. And so we will place and stack our increases in that center stitch. This also let us follow the rule that I mentioned on my previous video about working in rounds, which is that for a flat shape, you should increase each round the same amount of stitches as you started with in your magic ring. In the example of the square, let's say I start with 8 stitches into my magic ring. Even though we are making 4 increases each round, we are still increasing 8 stitches per round when we make increases of 3 stitches. We are just placing them in a different manner. So keep in mind that the amount of increases is not the same as the amount of stitches increased per round. Let's make sense of all of this information by actually making a square and a triangle. Based on our previous math, we are going to start our square with a magic ring of 8 stitches, which is a number divisible by 4. For our second round, we need to make 4 increases, and we will space them evenly so that we have an even square. To do this, we will make single crochet, increase 4 times. This will result in 4 increases with a space in between each of them. But as we discussed earlier, we also want to make the corners really prominent and also follow our flat shape rule. So we are going to make our increases of 3 stitches into 1 stitch instead of 2 stitches. A good tip when doing this, place a stitch marker on that second stitch of the increase to keep track of it. Remember that that stitch is the center and it is where we are going to place our increase on the next round. You should have something like this, and a total of 16 stitches, which means we still increased 8 stitches this round. It's already taking the squared shape. For round 3, we are just going to place our increases on those stitches that are marked or the center stitch of the increases of the previous round. The written version is 2 single crochet, increase, 3 single crochet 3 times, increase, and single crochet. You should end up with a total of 24 stitches. For round 4 and on, we will do the same thing, only placing our increases on the center stitch of the increases of the previous round. All the other stitches will be normal single crochet. You have made a square. Yay! Now going to our triangle, it's basically the same thing. The only difference being the amount of increases we are making. Following our previous math, I'm going to start my magic ring with 6 stitches, which again is divisible by 3. On my second round, I will make my 3 increases like this. Single crochet, increase 3 times. This will result in my increases having a space in between each of them. Also remember that our increases will be of 3 stitches instead of 2. You should end up with a total of 12 stitches. On the third round, we will place our increases in the center stitch of the previous increases. It should be this: 2 single crochets, increase, 3 single crochets 2 times, increase, single crochet. And you should end up with a total of 18 stitches. Round 4 is going to be the same thing, placing increases on the center stitch of the increases of the previous round. And there you have a triangle. As you probably noticed, look at the written versions of both shapes. It's exactly the same except the amount of times we repeat the stitches. And that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful and understood my explanation on how to create these shapes by stacking increases. If you have additional questions, please let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them. Here is a summary of what we learned today. Make sure to practice different shapes and combinations to get the hang of it. And remember that you're one step closer for creating your own designs if you're not already. As always, if you have any other comments or suggestions for future videos, comment them below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. Also make sure to check out my social media for more content. Happy crocheting! Bye!